Now, before we came on air, I spoke with the former Immigration Minister and Conservative peer, Timothy Kirkhope. I began by asking him what the government can do about the astronomical cost of dealing with illegal migrants.
Well, I don't quite understand these figures that we keep hearing, because the total budget for the entire immigration and asylum operation in the Home Office was until recently only £3.4 billion. And these figures seem to be accelerating the amount substantially, and I don't quite understand, particularly in relation to the targeting of these monies, which I'm not convinced is probably in the right direction.
And a lot of this is because there has been this rise in asylum cases. I mean, we've just had the latest immigration statistics out, up 57% from the previous year. I mean, the government has really made it a priority to try and get these numbers down. Why do you think they're going up so much?
Well, as I said, I think most people and the government even themselves seem to be confused at times, but in trying to have the two elements of immigration and asylum together rather than separated. I mean, the figures we are looking at, which are particularly alarming right now, in my opinion, are the net immigration figures, not the asylum figures, which undoubtedly are greater, and that needs handling in a particular way. But the actual issues about immigration and the number of people who are coming to this country under various schemes of immigration does seem to me to be a little bit out of control, and something which we ought to address, really, and are able to address. The government has got all the powers it needs to address those things. It ought to do so. And I think this is rather a problem.
I mean, when you look at those overall statistics standing at around 606,000 net migration, I mean, quite a lot of that is controlled immigration. There is the asylum cases, but a lot of those people are coming to study, which of course boosts the university sector and the economy. And lots of people are coming in through the Ukraine and the Hong Kong scheme, which the government's very proud of. And then there's lots of essential work visas for jobs like social care and the health sector. How do you think the government should get these numbers down if those skills and those people are needed in our economy right now?
Well, that, of course, is the interesting dilemma for the government. Basically, we do need to have immigration. And putting figures on and saying we will get it down just for the sake of it doesn't seem to me to be very sensible. What I think we need to be considering is the change in migration that's been going on in the last few years, particularly since Brexit. We lost a lot of people out of the health service and the care service, and indeed in other areas, when we left the European Union, because up till then, of course, as I think we all know, there was freedom of movement, so people could move into this country and indeed from this country into the European Union countries freely and without particular complication. And therefore, in immigration terms, these were not figures that really came to bear. Once that stopped, people in large numbers seem to have left and gone back to their other European countries, because, of course, it is more complicated for them now to be part of the immigration system. So they're not here anymore. But those places need to be filled. And consequently, the government has increased programs from other parts of the world within the immigration rules, which weren't there before. So I think they're replacing a lot of people who are not subject to those strict rules before, large numbers who have now left, and consequently the numbers have gone up considerably. And they're likely to continue increasing as long as we're going to fill up these positions from the immigrant community.
Yes, and I mean, we have a problem where we have a low birth rate, and the rate of dependence in terms of younger people working to people heading into retirement, those numbers have dropped quite a lot. Do you then think, Lord Kirkhope, that the reality is that for the foreseeable future, in order to sort of keep the economy going and fill these labour gaps, any government is going to have to accept that immigration is probably going to go up rather than making promises to get it down and putting a figure on it?
I think in the short term, it's inevitable that the immigration figures will continue to be large. But as I said to you before, they will be larger than they were when we were members of the EU, because free movement, of course, is not essentially the same thing as the immigration rules applying that they do now. So the figures have inevitably increased as a result of that. But the government has got to be very focused. We need, and we have the power now, to have people in this country who we actually want to be here to carry out certain functions and roles. And there are undoubtedly great demands in some of our sectors. I mentioned the health service. That is a critical one, but also in a lot of other areas too, where we do need labour, and where you're quite right, our own birth rate is actually dropping, which, of course, looking longer term, makes it even more difficult to fill all the roles. Technology comes to our aid, of course, because that reduces numbers needed in certain sectors. But you've got to be on top of this. It's a question of working out plans, but not turning to what seems to be the case at the moment, unfortunately, quite a lot of rhetoric and whipping up certain problems, particularly concentrating on the asylum seekers. Now, I don't quite get it, because that isn't the same thing. And whilst those figures are large, we need to tackle those by spending more of our resources. If these monies that the government now wishes to spend, we need to concentrate on processing as many cases as quickly as possible as we can, sending people back home who do not meet the 1951 Refugee Convention criteria. And when I was minister, about 75% did not meet those criteria, and we removed them from the country. What we've got at the moment is a massive backlog. We've got enormous expenditure on hotels and all kinds of social facilities, which, frankly, I think is wasted money. I don't want us to continue that. If we could use those resources to speed up the processing, deal with international partners, get back into a proper discussion with the EU and with the European member states, and really, one way and another, we should then be able to alleviate asylum applications, take the pressure off communities in this country, and concentrate, which we ought to be doing, on giving the priorities to those areas of strict immigration and immigration rules that are best for our economy and best for community relations.
Well, a really interesting discussion. It's a very complicated situation, as you say. Grateful for your time, Lord Kirkhope. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you very much.